Greetings and welcome to Hidden Scriptural Truths Revealed. The reason for the picture of a cowboy and a red Indian will be revealed later. The aim of this video is to show that not only in religion, where the truth has been corrupted, but also the false history concerning countries of the world. Facts will be presented showing that archaeological discoveries have been hidden by archaeologists, historians, and academics who are paid to keep quiet. The above mentioned people have gained financially by their contribution to encyclopedias, history books, and books of learning that would now need to be rewritten, so one can understand the reason for their hysterical attitude when hard facts are revealed by genuine archaeologists and ancient language experts that prioritize the truth and not money. After this video that lays out the incredible amount of research, you'll be shocked by how we've been deceived into believing that Columbus discovered America, Cook discovered Australia, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. When discoveries were initially given to them, they were hidden in locked up basements of museums and institutions. The hard lesson has now been learned, and nothing found passes into their hands. To be expected, certain governments legislate against the facts being made known for political reasons. Fortunately, there are the rare gems that swim against the tide and report the facts. Daniel chapter 12 verse 4 is an end-time prophecy. Even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. What has been hidden will be exposed. Sites in America, Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of the world need to be visited to unearth the truth. YouTube needs to be complimented for the documentaries they post. It was the destiny of Phoenicia that she should become a great manufacturing nation to the ancient world. Her dyed textiles, glass technology, superb stonework, ceramics, and gem engraving were unsurpassed. The Phoenician language was closely related to Hebrew until both were displaced by Aramaic. The Phoenicians used cuneiform for writing, and the significance of this will be seen later. These two qualified men, L.A. Waddell, specializing in deciphering Indo-Sumerian, and Sir Flinders Petrie, an archaeologist, asserts that the Venetians had a civilization equal or superior to that of Egypt in technical work. Tyre was the London of antiquity and the center of a vast global trading network. From the 13th century, Phoenicia was the dominant naval, commercial power and a great distributing nation. She had two harbours that made her a great maritime city, known for shipbuilding. One harbour was on the south side of the island, and the Sidonian harbour, being one of the best natural harbours in the eastern Mediterranean, was on the north side and is still used today. By the 11th century, she was as great as Babylon and Egypt, and today Venice preserves the ethnic title of Phoenicia. The Straits of Gibraltar were passed, and a city was built on the shores of the Atlantic. They founded Cadiz on Spain's west coast as a starting point for Atlantic trade. Tarshish, later called Tartessos, was at the mouth of the river Guadalquivir, being the only navigable river in Spain and located north of Cadiz. The area is called Andalusia. It is the largest producer of minerals in Spain: copper, iron, zinc, and lead. Jarosite ores, rich in silver, are also mined. Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 9. states that beaten silver was brought from Tarshish. And Ezekiel chapter 27 verse 12 also confirms that the area was rich in silver, iron, tin and lead. Bible accuracy. The type of vessels built specially for ocean travel were called ships of Tarshish, to distinguish them from the smaller craft that plied the Mediterranean. Some Phoenician ships sailing from Spain were en route to the tin mines of Cornwall. There is substantial evidence that 89 years after the fall of Troy, Brutus, a descendant of the Trojan royalty, sailed up the River Thames in Britain and founded Trinovantum, New Troy, that ultimately became London. Researcher L.A. Waddell gives an authenticated, unbroken chronology of highly civilized, independent British kings reigning in London from Brutus in 1103 B.C.E. to the Roman conquerors. There is evidence that a large portion of the people of Britain are descendants of the seagoing Phoenicians. 1 Kings chapter 10 verses 22 to 23. The king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold, silver, ivory, apes, and peacocks. Is it significant that Ferdinand Magellan required 3 years to circumnavigate the world, from 1510 to 1513, and Sir Francis Drake also took 3 years to complete the same circumnavigation, 1577 to 1580. 2 Chronicles chapter 9 verses 17 to 20. King Solomon made a great throne of ivory, overlaid with pure gold. All the vessels, the 6 steps to the throne, and the footstool were of pure gold. Verse 22 states that he had more wealth than all the kings of the world. And silver was so common that in verse 27 we read he made silver as common as stones in Jerusalem. Ancient historical records from a Phoenician colony, 500 BCE, reports about a convoy of 60 ships, each carrying 550 people, planted colonies down the Atlantic coast of Africa. Is this perhaps where the ivory and the apes came from? In 600 BCE, Herodotus, the father of history, records a Phoenician clockwise circumnavigation of Africa, commissioned by Pharaoh Necho III, a distance of 13,000 miles. So what other trips were being made? From perhaps as early as 1200 BCE. Because of the depth of ignorance into which Europe fell during the Dark Ages, we forget how advanced the ancients were about the earth, astronomy, and navigation. In 500 BCE, Hanna, a Carthaginian explorer, visited the west coast of Africa, planting Phoenician posts in Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, Ghana, and as far south as Gabon. He reported the volcano of Cameroon Mountain, or Faker, that is still the most active volcano in Africa. He also reported sightings of the first gorillas in Gabon. He returned via the Canary Islands. Ivory and apes are now accounted for. From the west coast of Africa, being further south with the southeast trade winds, a trip to America and the West Indies would be easy. Section 1, to the West Indies. A gem, Dr. Barry Fell, a Harvard professor and one of the world's foremost epigraphers, that is, an expert in the field of ancient inscriptions, came to the conclusion after seeing evidence that the ancient visitors to North America were trading with well-established fur trappers and also mining precious metals on the sites where ancient workings have been discovered. 1. Hundreds of years later, Columbus discovered huge ancient mines on the island of Hispaniola, the second largest island in the West Indies. In Haiti, on the west of the island, traces of furnaces with gold had been refined were found. Gold is now accounted for on Solomon's list. North America and the Red Indians, a major study. 2. In 1780, on the shores of Mount Hope Bay in Bristol, Rhode Island, a rock was discovered with an inscription that in 1975 Dr. Fell was asked to decipher. And this is what it stated. Voyages from Tarshish, this stone proclaims. This would prove that on the eastern seaboard of North America was once a port for ships of Tarshish. 3. The Los LUNOS Decalogue stone found in Hidden Mountain, New Mexico, and is writing in 8.5 lines of Paleo Hebrew, which ceased to be written in 600 BCE. The Epigraphic Society agrees with Robert PFEIFFER of Harvard Semitic Museum that the inscription is not a hoax, but a truncated form of the Ten Commandments. The stone is estimated to weigh 8 tons and lies at an angle with damage caused it by an ancient earthquake. King Solomon ruled about 900 BCE, which is around 3,000 years ago, and the age of the writing, after the moss and patina were removed, is estimated to be between 2,000 and 3,000 years old. The stone was first spotted by local Indians in 1850 and was later pointed out to an ancient text scholar in 1880. The stone is on an Indian reservation in the Rio Abajo Desert belonging to the Isleth Indians, and permission had to be gained to cross the land by the manager of the Kamash Lodge. Some enemies of truth managed to deface the first 2 lines. Today, scholars can read Paleo Hebrew, and it is the 10 Commandments exactly as given to Moses on Mount Horeb. The place where the stone was found is 20 miles south of Albuquerque on the Rio Grande River, that was navigable for ships of 150 tons as far as El Paso up to 350 years ago. El Paso is near the stone site, and in King Solomon's time rivers would not have become silted and unnavigable. 4. Another much smaller Decalogue stone was found in 1859, including a keystone, a stone bowl, and a stone box. They came from an ancient Indian burial mound called the NEWARK earthworks. This happened when excavations in Ohio by the BUCKEYE Lake were being undertaken. A coffin was unearthed, and due to age it crumbled into dust, leaving behind an ancient case containing this stone with the 10 Commandments written in Paleo Hebrew with the other pieces. The case and the stone have been inspected by experts and to its age, the way they were made, and the conclusion is that they are not a forgery and were not made by any equipment known today. At present, the case and the stone are in the Johnson Humbrig House Museum, a private one, or that have been hidden from sight by the system. The navigable waters of Lake Erie are nearby, with access to the sea via the St. Lawrence River, making it easy to understand how ancient ships could arrive there. 5. The History of the American Indians by James Adair, who was a pioneer physician, patriot, explorer, and trader, lived among the Indians from 1735. Close to half the book is dedicated to the notion that the native tribes are descended from one of the lost tribes of Israel. His information is compelling. By a strict permanent divine precept, the Hebrew nation was ordered to worship at Jerusalem, YHWH, the true and living God, and by whom by the Indians is styled Yehovah, Sadly, 72 interpreters, either from ignorance or superstition, translated this to Adonai. We totally agree, as the name they use is from the original letters Yo, He, Wa, Y-H-W-H. The correct pronunciation is Yahuwah. His observations are confirmed in research done by the Hope of Israel Ministries. A. The ceremonies of the Indians in their religious worship is more of the Mosaic institution than of pagan imitation. B. Dr. Joseph Mahan, an expert in ancient Indian ethnology of southeastern Indians, has a small tablet with writing in ancient cuneiform and has pottery uncovered from the waters of the Bahamas. The Yukis stated they had migrated to the area from Florida and Georgia from the Bahamas. They are racially and linguistically different from their neighbors. Every year on the 15th day of the sacred month of harvest, they make a pilgrimage. For 8 days they live in booths with a roof covered in branches, dance round a sacred fire, and call upon the name of God. The Israelites do the same, according to Leviticus chapter 23, verses 39 to 42. C. Dr. Cyrus Gordon, a doctor in Semitics at Brandeis University, Boston, later of New York University, was privileged to sit in on one of the Yuki Indians' harvest festivals. He listened to their chants and songs. Being an expert in Hebrew, Minoan, and many Middle Eastern languages, he was amazed that they were using the Hebrew name for God, YHWH. D. A stone found at Fort Benning, Georgia, with unusual markings all over it, was photographed, and Professor Stanislav Sigert, Professor Emeritus of Northwest Semitic Languages in the Near Eastern Languages and Civilizations Department at the University of California, identified the markings as script of the second millennium before the Messiah, originating from the Minoan civilization on the Isle of Crete. E. Early settlers to America found among the Indian tribes the wearing of phylacteries. Minoan and Phoenician coins and a Star of David in an ancient ruin of the Pueblo Indians in New Mexico. F. Manfred Metcalf picked up a piece of sandstone with unusual markings on it and gave it to Dr. Joseph B. Mahan Jr., Director of Education and Research at the Columbus Museum of Arts and Crafts, Georgia. He sent a copy to Dr. Cyrus Gordon, who, after studying it, stated that it was with the Aegean writing, whose best-known forms are Minoan, Linear B, and Mycenaean, Linear B. G. If any heathens accompanied them to the American world, or were settled in it before them, they became proselytes, and their pagan rites and customs were swallowed up in the Hebrew. H. Sir Walter Raleigh, in his History of the World, stated, the Indians he encountered used many Welsh words, long before the Welsh were known to have come to America. Linguistic studies prove that the Welsh language is very closely akin to ancient Hebrew. J. The book Peruvian Antiquities by the scientists Mariano, Edward Rivera, and John James Teshudi state, after careful examination, the religious rites of American Indians in many points are in agreement with Hebrew people. The Indians offer their first fruits, keep their new moons, divide the year into 4 seasons corresponding with the Hebrew festivals, and in some parts circumcision is practiced. They abstain from the blood of animals, do not eat fish without scales, consider certain animals, particularly the hog, birds and reptiles, unclean. J. Peruvian Antiquities confirms the statement of James Adair that the use of Hebrew words is not uncommon in their religious performances. Also, an accused or guilty person is called Haksit Kanaha, a sinner of Canaan, and to one who pays little attention to religious worship is called a Tishi, Haksit Kanaha, meaning you resemble a sinner of Canaan. They do not worship or make any images or statues in accordance with the second commandment. Sadly, from the time our ancestors settled among them, corruption followed and became worse with each year. Though such evidence does not prove that the Indians themselves were Israelites, it does show that long before Columbus, Hebrews had reached the New World and had left their imprint upon its inhabitants. The trouble is, most of us of the present generation have been brainwashed to think the ancients were merely superstitious savages, terrified of sailing out to sea lest they fall off the edge of the earth. Living in South Africa, a country that was slated and criticized by the world for years, I was interested to know what had happened to the indigenous Indian people after the Europeans and their religion arrived. Here are some facts from Google. 1. Between 1800 and 1900, half the Indian population was killed. As a schoolboy, we used to get excited watching films about cowboys and Indians, and clap when the cowboys used to beat and kill the Red Indians. This was the most powerful propaganda and form of brainwashing to justify the reduction of the indigenous population. In South Africa, we did not make films called The Boer and the Black Tribes with the same intention. Yet today, radical, racist black politicians are allowed to chant, "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer." And these words are not deemed by the judiciary to be hate speech. With the farmers killed, we wonder what they will eat. 2. In the United States, there are 566 federally recognized Indian tribes and only 315 Indian reservations. Here they would have been called homelands. 3. In South Africa, there are 9 different African languages that were originally grouped into 10 homelands, reservations, where the different ethnic Africans were relocated to their traditional land that they occupied before the Europeans arrived and were allowed to govern. They no longer exist, yet they choose to remain there. A fact, people are comfortable to be with their own. 4. Wikipedia gives a list of massacres in South Africa. From 1836 to 2022, the greatest was between 1818 and 1828, where in 10 years, King Shaka massacred an estimated 1 to 2.5 million black Africans. The history press of the United Kingdom describes him as a tyrant, a monster of cruelty who murdered his own people on a whim, and his campaigns of conquest depopulated huge areas of the interior. Yet a memorial to him was erected at Stanger, where he was buried. To remember his assassination on the 28th of September 1828 by his 2 half-brothers, Dingaan and Mahalangana. Even in 2022, to commemorate him, a delegation to the memorial is led by the present king of the Zulus, his warriors and dignitaries. This can only happen in Africa. 5. Wikipedia's survey finds that up to 2022, 980 white South Africans were killed by black South Africans, and the white population is decreasing due to immigration caused by farm murders, kill the boer, kill the farmer, crime, government corruption that is destroying the country, and black racialism, B.E.E. 6. The white population has dropped to 5 million, while the black African population is 49 million and growing. The reversal of North America. Just wait till the numbers of massacred indigenous people in South America and Australia are revealed. People in glass houses had no right to throw stones, but they did. Off to South America now. Shalom.